For today's video, it brings me back to my property. And I know what you're thinking, Anthony, how could you teach us a measuring lesson out here on a piece of land? How can you teach us something that is going to apply to welding out on your land? Well, this is a trick that you're going to need if you're in the construction industry. You're 100% going to have to use this trick unless you have GPS or some other way to figure it out. But before we jump into my measuring tip, I want to talk a little bit about what kind of progress I've made over the last week on the property. So obviously I've gotten the gravel delivered that's going to be underneath my slab. I'm going to go ahead and spread this thing out once I get the thickened edge part, or some people call it a haunch.
The haunch.
Between the corners of the house here. And I'm going to go ahead and scrape that out with the teeth of the excavator on the rubber tire over there. And then, yeah, we'll go ahead, we'll level this all out, get it right in there, and then cut our plumbing in, and do the rest of that. Not something I've done before. I just know how to put things together, so I know how to lay things out, and that's the biggest challenge when it comes to doing anything like what I'm talking about here. And got my electrical service all together, ready to go. It's been approved, it's been flagged, and they're gonna come out and dig the trench and wire it up here soon. The sooner the better, because I need to get out of that campground. I mean, I love the people who own the campground. I love the campground itself, but it is costing me $1,300 a month. And boy, I am sick of paying that. So once I get that done, I can move the camper out here. So as you've seen last week, my well is already in, obviously. But the culvert they put in, I had to do some dirt work around it. I had to make sure that any sort of moisture, rain, snow, whatever, was going to run away from it and run somewhere else. Now, I would have liked it to be at ground level, but unfortunately, I dug the hole a little bit too deep, and the guys didn't really say anything to me when they were throwing it in. I was here on the property. I could have corrected it, but no harm, no foul. I came up with a solution. This is going to work out just fine. So obviously, the well is where the water comes from, but the culvert is where the pump, the pressure tank, and the control panel are all down in. Let me give you a look at that. So there it is. There is the control panel and the pressure tank, and you can see the line coming in, line going out, and then our electrical wires, which we're gonna have to wire that into my electrical panel over there. You can see there's no pile of dirt behind me anymore. I graded it all out, and what I did, I made a giant arrow if you were looking up from the air or from space or whatever, and it's thickened along this side, and along that side. And the reason I did that was to divert rain and snow water away from the house. So when there's a snow melt and all the shit that's on top of the hills, because all of the water unfortunately runs right through the property right there and also right there. So what I did was just went ahead and made a little berm to divert it. I don't know if it's gonna work. It's a little bit of an experiment, but I had about 1,000 yards of dirt I needed to do something with, so that's where it went. So the final thing I did last week was I went ahead and put this sprinkler box in over my septic vent pipe. So I dug it down and I went ahead and covered it up so that way it can't get broken off. So that's a little trick that one of the guys out of Whitehall, a fellow named Joe, told me to do. He was like, yeah, if you got a vent pipe, he's like, you should cover it so you don't knock the top of it off. So that's what I did there. And that way also no critters or whatever can get down into it. I did have to cut into a hill, as you guys can see, in order to level this piece of land out enough for me to put a slab on grade like I'm doing. Originally, I was thinking, okay, just cut this part flat. Can't do that because what'll happen is rain, snow, whatever, once it melts, will get stuck up behind the slab of the house. So I wanted to make sure it had a way to escape, a way to run. So it's actually 4 inches higher right here than it is at the other corner of the property. I'm gonna rely on leveling the pad. So the pad's gonna be a little more in the ground right along here, in here, then it's going to be on that side. But it'll only probably be an inch or two in the actual ground over there, whereas over here it'll probably be like 3 or 4 inches. So that's just one way. Again, I'm trying to mitigate rainwater and issues. I'm sure I'll have some sort of issue that I was unforeseen, but that just goes along with the territory. But I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, it's a good looking rough grade. This is not the final grade, obviously. The final grade will be done once the house is done, because people are going to be tearing this up as they deliver me my trusses, my wood, whatever. Let's get on to the measuring trick, okay? So Basically what we need to do is square this up. I put the pins in roughly where they go, but it was too windy the other day to do this trick. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is lay one of these lines out. You want to get it as straight as possible. You're not going to get it perfect. There's just no fucking way. So the house I'm building is 42 by 42. You see I have a level kind of strung up on here. I leveled the 2 corner stakes that I started with because, well, I'm kind of a whack job and I want to make sure this thing is dead nuts as I can possibly make it. For 42, dead the fuck on when I pull the tension out of the tape measure, and our stake is level. Now, it was important to me to get this first side done, which is the septic side. And I'll show you why I wanted to do this side first and why I think you should start at a certain side on your house or whatever you're building. So as you can see, this is the view side of my property. This is where you can see that beautiful mountain range. If you'll notice, my tape measure and my line is laid out exactly the same direction as the mountain range because my master bedroom is going to be 2nd story right here above me. So I want to be able to look out my window in the morning and look at that beautiful mountain range. So that's why I set that side first. So like, let's say you want to make your house perfectly even with the street. Well, then you're going to want to measure from the street. Like, let's say that's what you're doing, and go ahead, pull 1 pin, right? Measure from the street, measure 42 feet from that pin. And then go ahead, you can measure from the street and then use this technique that I'm about to show you to square it up. It is going to involve some math. Let's do that first. Here on the screen is how I did the math, how I figured out how to do this. So basically how you're going to square this up is you're going to do it like it's 2 right triangles. And you want to check every which direction once you're done. This is just for doing square things. It can be applied to a square off of a square. You want to find the slope side length of your triangle. That has a specific name. I don't know what the fuck it is. You don't need to know what it is to get it done. So it comes out to 59 and some change. So what's unique about these tape measures and why you need these tape measures if you're squaring anything up is that these tape measures measure in tenths. And you can see how difficult it would be to try to get an exact measurement with inches if you were trying to use the inch side because it's out of 12. And when we got our dimension, which is 59.3 and some change, well, you can get to 50, let's say it's 39.3, and whatever the change is, and just get it to the nearest tenth that you can. Subscribe! It's imperative that if you're going to use this technique, that you have a tape measure that will do tenths. It's tenths of a foot. That's what it's showing you in. And the reason they show you that is so that you can use whatever the fuck that theorem is called in order to get your right triangle and in order to square things up. This is the tape measure I'm using. If you want to buy yourself one, the link will be in the description below. I really like this Stanley one. It's only a 100 footer. They make 200 footers. They make 50 footers, but 100 foot is perfect for my uses. Now, I'm always saying I'm not going to get scientific with it, but when you're doing something like this, you need to get fucking scientific with it, okay? Our decimal was 59.396 whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it as close to 59.39 and a half as I can. You simply want to take your tape measure and get them tight as you can. Make sure your stakes are in the ground real good. And you want to point the 2 figures at each other. So we got our 42. We've got our 59, our 59.39, which is going to be right there at the end, right in between that mark and that mark. So I'm going to simply take my stake out and move it over and get it right in there. Now, because I'm a fucking whack job, I'm going to go ahead and make sure she's level. She's pretty level like that. Right there.